19 today. We're coming up on 20. This is amazing. So yeah, this is where Julie and I get together, and Julie has coffee and Nate has whatever he feels like drinking at the time because it's 1:30 in the morning.
We're on opposite sides of the world. I can't believe that you agreed to this and that you've actually shown up every time.
Come on. Of course.
Every Monday, I'm like, ooh, is he going to just bail? It's 1 o'clock in the morning for him.
No. Well, today has been interesting actually because so I spent Friday, Saturday, and Sunday like hosting the COP online with Simone. And I was so tired. I was so tired. And I got to bed a little bit later last night. I had an appointment to get my bars done this morning, which was great. So I slept through my bars session, had some lunch, came back to my place, and I had to teach an online English class at 7:30. So I thought I'll take like a quick nap for about an hour. I'll wake up at 6 and I like somehow turned my alarm off and I slept until 7:20.
Just like the students.
I woke up and I was like 7:20 at night though, in the evening. Yeah, so I slept at 7:20 and I was like, oh, panic. So like get a shirt on, quick put up my Zoom setup because it's online, thankfully. But yeah,
that's
so I'm
amazing.
feeling, I guess that's the long story for, I'm feeling great. I had a big nap.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah. Teaching on Zoom has been interesting because I'm usually like pretty active walking around the classroom, writing on the whiteboard, drawing pictures. And so now I think, oh, what did I do today? Here we go. I picked up a little Post-it note. I was trying to explain. We read an article about what it means to be in the swing of things, like when the party is in the swing of, yeah. And so I said, like, when you go to a party, there's like the beginning part when nobody's there. Mm-hmm. And then kind of here is like the party's going, right? And then over here, everybody's drunk and going home. So that's what I had to do because I didn't have a whiteboard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You could have a whiteboard behind you.
Yeah, I thought about that. This is only the first week I've done it though.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to sort it out.
I think people need to get creative, you know. Having one kid in college doing this online, he's giving me feedback like, you know, the teachers are boring and it's not fun. So I think people need to all step it up a bit and, you know, make it interesting, make it fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think like I've, yeah.
Oh, look, we have a question.
I know, I saw Gloria. Hello,
Gloria, our number one fan.
I think whenever we make merchandise, we get like mugs or something, we have to send Gloria a free mug.
Okay.
So Gloria says, a question about control and jealousy distractors. Well, why don't we first explain about distractors? So, Julie, do you want to explain about distractors?
Okay, there's what, 24 distractor implants. Let's see if I can do them all. Anger. Rage.
Oh, hang on. I was just going to get my manual and then I could check. It's in the foundation manual, right?
Anger, rage, fury, hate, blame, shame, regret, and guilt. Addictive, compulsive, perverted. What's the other one? Something, points of view.
Well, there's love, business.
Love, sex, jealousy, peace, life, death, living reality, business, doubt, fear, and relationship. It's pretty much everything. Everything in this reality distracts you from presence.
Right.
And the simultaneity of gifting and receiving of all the elements in the universe.
Yes. And
so what was the question?
Rodrani. Hey, I saw Rodrani and hung out on the COP with her. I don't know if this is
Yeah,
supposed to be public knowledge, but Rodrani, one day in class, she had pajama bottoms and like a fur coat top. It was an interesting
that sounds
mix.
about right.
Yes.
Super
Um,
fun.
so let's see.
So what was
Gloria says, "Oh my God, I got all of them."
oh,
Well,
you get, yeah. Well, yeah. So with all of them, it's not about staying on the surface and getting caught up in them. When you recognize that you're functioning from a distractor implant, you pock and pod everything underneath it. And then you ask, like, okay, so what's underneath that? What's it distracting you from? Where'd you go, Nate? You're looking at
I'm
something.
I'm deep in my computer looking for my foundation manual. And the thing is, the first one that popped up was foundation from 2008. So I
Yeah.
think that's a little bit old. Yeah.
So I remember probably 10 years ago, I did a clearing night and invited people from, uh, I think it was a meetup group. And so there were people who'd never heard of Access before. And this older gentleman, he was probably in his early 70s, showed up at my house, paid $20 or whatever for this clearing night. And he had something that was a distractor implant. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was guilt or something, I don't know. But I was running the clearing and asking him what was underneath it. And then he's like, okay, so underneath that was sadness, and underneath that was something else, and underneath that was something else. And it took like 5 or 6 layers. And at the bottom, he was like, oh, it's joy. It's a new day. And his like whole life and demeanor and everything totally changed. And he realized that he had stacked all this stuff on top that covered up his ability to perceive this joy, and that he could create that every day if he chose it. And he left totally happy, never saw him again.
$20. That's a good deal.
I
Huh.
know.
And he never got back to you, or you never heard from him? Nothing.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah. That's one of those things that's a little bit, um, I don't know if I want to say disappointing, but there have been people that I've had conversations with or given bar sessions to, and after the bar session, they get up and they're just, their face has changed, their whole demeanor has changed. They look like they're ready to like take on the world, and then they walk out the door, and that's the end of it. There's never like a thanks so much, my entire life changed, or like wow, everything's opened up, or nothing. So
Well, that's where we need to know what we know and not
yeah.
need the external validation, although acknowledging and feedback is great. I got a beautiful email feedback from a woman I worked with a few weeks ago who had stage 4 breast cancer. And she was like 31. She was pregnant, second child. She was really full of anxiety, couldn't relax, couldn't sleep. Um, and so I did an SOP session and asked her what she wanted to get out of it. And she was just like, just to be able to relax, and to not be so full of anxiety. And um, I got this email from her yesterday saying that after her surgery, they reduced it down to stage 1, like it wasn't stage 4 anymore, and she didn't need chemo, and she was so happy. She was just like, thank you. And that's like, usually you don't get that, but I know that the energy shifted and changed. I know that she was willing to receive something different, and it's just really cool to have the acknowledgement, but I already knew it.
Right. Yeah. And the
It's nice
thing.
when they know it.
Yes, I did have. There was a girl who had been adopted to the U.S. when she was a baby, and she returned to Korea, and she was looking for her birth parents, and she couldn't find them at all, and she was been contacting all these people, and she came and met me, and she's like, "Hey, what have you been up to?" I was like, "Oh, well, I'm doing these access classes and stuff. Do you want to try it out?" She's like, "Sure." So she came over and got her bars done, and then the next day somebody called like, "Hey, we found your birth parents."
Oh
Like,
my God.
I was like, and she'd been looking for a couple months, I guess. Um, but yeah, it was interesting. Um, but I also, when you when you said not needing the validation from other people, I suddenly realized I said it's nice when people can acknowledge the change, and then I also realized that I am not many times willing to receive it when they do. Because sometimes people will get up from a session and they're just like, "That was amazing, man. You're so amazing. That was awesome." And then I'm like, "Oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
and like the receiving isn't, I have very like picky receiving times. I don't know. Like I'll receive this from this person at this time and I'll receive this over here sometimes, but this kind of thing, maybe not right now. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's first of all recognizing that, there are places where we receive and places where we don't, allows us to change it. I've been noticing, like, during this time of quarantine, how much I like want someone else to do something for me or be there for me or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, I guess I need to be this for myself. If I want a hug, I guess I need to be that for myself. Like, what am I not willing to give to myself that if I was would allow me to receive it from anywhere and everywhere?
Yeah. You know, Simone, Australia is having a bit of an issue with um, the virus and the lockdown and things like this. And she said that there's a woman that she became aware of who hasn't touched anyone in 6 months.
Oh my God.
And I just, I don't, I don't know what that would be. Like, I mean, I had 2 weeks of quarantine when I returned to Korea after India, and I didn't touch anybody except myself occasionally um, for 2 weeks, and that was weird. But also during that time, I did an online SOP class, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exactly count, but helps. It helps a lot.
Yeah, the
Um,
connection. Totally.
yeah, absolutely. So, um,
Oh,
yeah.
Gloria has
So,
another comment. I have to control everything and conclude. I thought as a psychologist it was an ego problem. We're all control freaks and conclusion queens. I have a telecall called Conclusion Queen. I mean, part of the thing about it is like that's how this reality works. But in learning to go beyond it, choosing to be a question instead of conclusion, it just gives you more possibilities. It's not wrong.
it's pretty amazing. I think probably my first foundation class years and years ago, I learned about DJCCs, and in my
Are
beginning, sorry.
which are for the
Oh, I'm
audience.
sorry. Sorry. Decisions, judgments, conclusions, and computations. Yeah. And those are related also to projections, expectations, separations, and judgments.
And
Again,
rejections
rejections. There you go.
as
Projections,
juniors.
projections, judgments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but those are still relevant, being aware of those places.
Hmm.
At the very beginning, I was like, oh, I handled all the DJCCs. Now it's time to move on to the next class. And yeah, becoming aware of all the places that I conclude something or have decided something, and those are such fixed places. when you decided you can do something, or you have to do something, or you can't do something, or you've decided like this job is right for you, or the person is right for you, like all of those are, oh, they just lock you into such a small, narrow, it's not even a possibility because it's a decision. It's been finalized and there's no more question. There's no more possibility available because it's done. You decided. Um, and conclusions are, I mean, they're so closely related to that. You know, if you conclude that this is how it has to be, or you conclude like, oh, this is what they think about me, or this is how it went. Um, yeah, that locks down and it takes you out of question. I mean, you mentioned question before. It's such a big tool. It's such a big tool.
Yeah, and like this is how I like it, or this is how we've always done it. Um, where we learn how to do things, and what energy that was, and like if anybody ever made you wrong for doing something different, like you lock all that in, and it makes it really hard to shift and change it, to melt the rigidity there. um,
Yeah.
that's what the foundation is for.
Yes. And the other element that she talked about here is control. And I mean, I think control can get a bad name, but like you said, we're all controlling. And in fact, Gary, I think we all know he's one of the most controlling people there are, but he's controlling for greater. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, so many times he uses this one clearing so that, like, be aware of your control capacity, but how can you use it for greater would be to use this clearing. What energy, space, and consciousness can we be to be out of control, out of definition,
Out
out
of
of form,
limitation, out of
structure,
form,
and
source, and image, out
submission?
of linearity, out of concentricity.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, blah, blah, blah. So the thing is, though, it's like when you start to recognize that you're doing control in the contractive sense, you can run that clearing, and then you'll have a bigger sense of what's possible, and you can use your control for greater.
Yeah. Yeah. Dane told me to run that process a lot. And so
He
I
told
ran
you
that a
to.
lot. He said, Nate, it might be a good idea if you ran that process. So,
So go
yeah.
ahead, let's run it now.
Okay. So, what energy, space, consciousness can you and your body be to be out of control, out of definition, out of limitation, out of form, structure, significance, out of linearity, and out of concentricity for all eternity? And everything that is destroyed, uncreated, all times a gazillion.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyond.
Yep. And that's one of the processes that I did actually run. I mean, they say like 30 times a day for 30 days, and I ran it more than that. And still, like, we just ran it right now, and I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm done with it.
Well, we're never done. Awareness is never done. So, the more you expand your awareness, the more you need to use the tools. There was one time I remember walking on the beach in Australia during some class. Maybe it was the Beyond, what was it called? Beyond class? I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, it was Beyond the 7 Day.
Okay.
It was a Beyond class.
Oh, right.
And I was trying to run some clearing that he gave us 30 times. And like partway through, I just forgot. And so in the class, I asked the question, what happens when you can't remember what the clearing is? Like it just leaves your head. And he said, that's because you're done. Like you don't need to run it anymore. I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I was making myself wrong for not being able to remember it. Well, at least done for that moment, not forever.
I obviously remembered that one, so not done.
Yeah. So like
Maybe
when
every
it just
week you can,
disappears, you're good for a little
uh,
while.
maybe every week you can check in and be like, "Hey Nate, do you remember that control process?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." Check. Wow. So what about your control queen class? Like, how did that go? Or what was the,
It was great. Not a whole lot of people chose it. I think
yeah,
you have to be willing to look at that. And I don't know, I pick the tough subjects, man.
yeah, you do.
Divorce, control queen, um,
Yeah,
stuff like that. But I got a lot out of it. I got a lot out of it. I had a huge aha.
great.
Yeah.
That's really good.
hmm
So
Yeah.
was that like a 1 day class?
It was just a 1 hour thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Were men allowed to come as well for the, I mean,
Oh, men
it's
are
for queens,
always
right?
allowed.
It's for
More
queens. I
men,
don't know.
please.
More men.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think on the COP. Don't remember seeing a lot of guys on there.
Hmm.
Yeah. It was very Asia heavy. Like
Really?
a lot of Chinese and Indians on it. Yeah, it was interesting, but um, it was a really good class. I mean, I know everybody always says that about every class, and so I always feel kind of like, well, of course you're going to say it's a good class. So actually, since the class finished, I've been trying to think of how I can say it was a better than good class, or it was, yeah. I haven't come up with anything, obviously. Um,
Well, I think it's a testament to the amazingness of the access consciousness tools because everything continually expands.
yeah.
So every class can be amazing, and that's awesome. Like, how many times have you done other things that it's like,
Yeah.
you know? But every single class expands your awareness. Every single class gives you the possibility to choose something greater. And every single class is different and greater in and of itself.
Yeah. And
That's
also,
like
sorry, go ahead.
unheard of.
And it's been interesting for me to take a look at that and see, like, maybe like some of the classes maybe are more potent or more intense for me, but maybe they're not for everyone else. And so every class is different for every participant. And then again, I mean, when you listen to the class sometimes, you hear a totally different thing that you missed entirely. And the number of things, well, the number of things covered in a class um, are just amazing. And even by day 3, I was handling questions and someone asked a question and I was like, we already talked about that. We talked about that yesterday. Like you don't even remember because you're so fried. And
And
then,
you've had experience. Maybe this was one of their first ones and they couldn't hear it. It's
right.
amazing how much you don't hear the first few times through,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is why they have the repeat policy in a lot of the classes. It's half price or discounted to
Right.
repeat. So they.
And, and then I met the guy for bars today and he's very excited about taking a COP class. And he really wants me to explain what is the COP class about? And he really wants me to tell him what is he going to get out of the COP class?
Shit.
What is going to be his, because he wants to talk to his
Tell
other
them
Korean
nothing.
friends.
You
I know.
don't go.
Yeah. He he knows that he has to go, but he
Oh,
wants to get like a measurable,
right.
objective, like, and I was trying to explain to him what it means, like your brain is fried. at the end, like last night, my brain was just absolutely fried. And he was like, "Oh, so is that a good thing or a bad thing?" I'm like, "Oh,
Well,
fuck."
what if you explained it in other terms that he can understand? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, going to a gourmet meal in a country that you've never had any of the food.
Well, Koreans only eat Korean food, so that's not going to work.
All right, then in
No,
their
no,
food,
no. Keep going. I keep going. I'm kidding.
like I can explain the flavor of this and the crisp of that and the hotness and the spiciness and the coolness and the sweetness, but until you eat it yourself, you're never going to really fully experience it.
Right.
So go and take a bite.
That's actually really helpful. Okay, I can do that. If I told him that, he would laugh, but I don't think he would he
Or you
would
could do the
necessarily.
swimming one.
Okay.
You
I can
know,
tell
you
you
can
about swimming, but
explain
until
about
you
what
do
it
it,
feels like to swim and to float in the coldness of the water or the salt or
right.
whatever, or the pool, but until they actually go in the water.
Yeah. And that would work for a lot of things, like
Uh-huh.
riding motorcycles or, yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And you know, if they're drawn to it, there's the curiosity there.
Yeah, he's absolutely drawn to it. I mean, we've been swapping bars. We swapped MPSS, I think a week or so ago, and he was just blown away, like how he felt. He's like, I feel so light. I feel so light. Wow. I feel so light. I was
So
like,
how would
dude,
you explain that to somebody who's never felt it before?
yeah. Yeah, I think that's gonna be the easiest way to go. I'll have to do that.
Yeah.
But he and he's like, well, there's a manual. I was like, yeah, there's a manual. Okay, well that's good. I was like, dude, like, okay. So
That
he
guy
wants
should do the out of control, out of definition
uh
clearing because, like, yeah, he's trying to figure it out. Well, it'll be interesting.
so yeah, so he wants to make sure he can get the manual a few days before class. So he can read it all and try and like
Good
know,
luck.
and he wants to know like I know that he wants to read through the manual to be prepared for what we're going to talk about. And then we're going to get to class and he's like, "Hey, why didn't we talk about the manual?" So, oh,
Yeah.
good times.
Oops.
Oh
I
well.
know it's
Um,
it's funny. Out of control. It's such a big thing to and to not be trying to get it right and not be
yeah.
wrong. And that's probably a lot of what he's doing too, is trying to get the manual so he can ask the right questions so that he knows that he's not wrong in whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um,
So we'll
so
see.
it takes a journey to get there.
And the thing is, I
You'll be
remember
okay
that,
with being wrong.
yeah, I was also kind of like that at the beginning. And so I should be more like sympathetic, but I'm not. Like, yeah,
You're a
that's
mean, mean person.
super mean. Yep, super mean. I do that guy's bars twice a week. I'm so mean.
You run his
Oh,
bars or you trade?
well, we trade. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
we trade. I get
Okay,
my bars done for sure. Absolutely.
awesome.
So, yeah. Um, alrighty. Well, we're off. You got your time.
Yes, I have my expanding exercise. So, yeah, there were some people watching. You could have popped some comments or questions in. We love to hear from you, to know who you are,
Yes.
and bring
I'm
you
really
into
happy to
the
see Rodrani on
conversation.
here. I'm not even Facebook friends with Rodrani. We're gonna change that. There you go.
All right.
Well,
Well, it was good
thank you very
seeing you
much.
again.
Good to see you too. Have a good expansion exercise. And yeah, I'll see you next week. I won't miss it.
All right.
See you later.
And take care.
Bye bye.